Morning everybody, welcome to our Remembrance service, and we're broadcasting from the Cenotaph in Halifax and from Halifax Minster, the beautiful Minster, over 1,000 years old parts of the Minster, which kind of puts our short lives into perspective. And that's really what our Remembrance service is about today, remembering previous generations and the sacrifices they made so that we could enjoy the freedoms and the peace that we do today. I'm not going to talk any further. I'm going to hand straight over to our student leadership team who are going to lead us in the service. And
Today we gather as a sixth form community to remember and respect the sacrifice of those who have died and those who continue to fight today in conflicts around the world. We especially remember the sacrifice of the people of Halifax. We remember the men who left their families and all they knew and loved, but who did not return. We also remember the people they left behind and their sacrifice in losing a loved one to war. But why do we remember? Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We remember in order to avoid the mistakes of the past and point the way to a more peaceful and just world. 22 million. To us, that's just a number, but to the families and friends of those 22 million who died during the Great War, it's more than just a number. It's the loss of close loved ones whose parents will never get to see their sons and daughters again. We remember them so that their sacrifice was not in vain.
Now we will have our first poem called In Flanders Field. In Flanders Field the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns' blow. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrels with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders Field.
We remember those who have fallen and those who fight today. As we remember, we can draw inspiration from the sacrifice of previous generations. During the Second World War, everyone in Britain was affected by the changes in society that were necessary to win the war. Parents were separated from their children, as over 1 million children were evacuated to the safety of the countryside from big cities. Wives and husbands were separated for years as men went away to fight and women took over jobs in factories. People could not enjoy the freedoms they were once used to in everyday life. Even the food people ate was rationed, and many people went hungry. Finally, many people lost loved ones in the bombings and in the fighting. We can draw inspiration from the war generation in our current fighting against the coronavirus. Many of the restrictions on our freedoms are similar to those of the Second World War, but much severe in many ways.
Progress was made after war by setting up the NHS after the war ended. The NHS was set up partly as an act of remembrance in recognition of the sacrifices made by all the people of Britain in the war and a desire to create a better, fairer and more peaceful world. It was created to provide free healthcare to those in need. The news has painted a picture of COVID-19 being a war and our NHS being the heroes, fighting to preserve our lives and our health. We can do our bit by wearing a mask to protect our vulnerable, by socially distancing to stop the spread and to protect our NHS. In protecting the NHS, we are also protecting the legacy of the war generation and the good that came from their sacrifice.
On Remembrance Day, we acknowledge the courage and sacrifice of those who served their country and of those still fighting. We pay our respects to those who every day fight for what we believe in as a country. Wars continue today, and it is important we pay our respects to those fighting for us. We wear a poppy to show our respects, but to also support war veterans and their families. But why do we wear a poppy? Spanning from southern Belgium to the northwest of France, Flanders Field is where poppies began to grow on barren battlefields. The flower became the only symbol of beauty that stemmed from warfare, which is why we wear one on our left lapel every Remembrance Day. The second poem was written in November 1918 as a reply to In Flanders Field, the poem we heard earlier. It tells us why it is important to remember by wearing a poppy. O you who sleep in Flanders Field, sleep sweet to rise anew. We caught the torch you threw, and holding high we keep the faith with all who died. We cherish too the poppy red that grows on fields where valour led. It seems to signal to the skies that blood of heroes never dies, but lends a lustre to the red of the flower that blooms above the dead in Flanders Field. And now the torch and poppy red we wear in honour of our dead. Fear not ye have died for naught, we'll teach the lessons that ye wrought in Flanders Field.
The money donated when you get a poppy goes to the Royal British Legion, where the money raised goes to providing support to the armed forces community in 6 key areas: financial support, advice, employment, mobility, housing and mental health. Many of you may have noticed the names on the crosses outside our building. These are the names of soldiers from our area. These crosses symbolise the importance of remembering the sacrifices those from our town made. It also allows us to avoid disassociation and brings home the effect on our town that the conflicts made and continue to make. Every day it becomes more important that we remember the effects of conflict on our society and the area around us. Seeing the memorials in our area allows us to pay our respects and remember what was sacrificed. There are multiple memorials, a few being in the town centre, in Whalley and at the Minster. The fact that the memories are so close to us and around our sixth form allows us to remember not just the 11th, but every day, as we couldn't be here without their sacrifice.
These are the names of some of the thousands of soldiers from the area around our college who went off to fight but did not return. Listen carefully to their names as each one lost his life in war. Each name you will find on a cross of remembrance outside sixth form. Nellie Spindler, William Brooks, Harry Clegg, Spencer Cockcroft, Albert Dyson, Edgar Holland, Harold Holroyd, John Edward Hoyle, James William Hoyle, Harold Kingham, Wilfred McKay, Wilson Midgley, Herbert R. Munday, Harry Newsom, Hedley Palmer,
Joseph Gallagher, Peter William Raystrick, Lawrence Land, George Bentley, Thomas Clay, Selwyn Craven, George Nicol, Sam Turner, Donald Broughton, Lewis Cox, Fred Hallett, Ernest Shackleton, Eric Willman, Jonathan Sutcliffe, John Farrar Sutcliffe,
Arnold Taylor, Luther Taylor, Harold A. Tetley, Arthur Townsley, Benjamin Wall.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Lord your